KILR Killer Game.
Hello, gamers, simmers, and pilots. I am the Killer Gamer, and welcome to the World Tour, semi-World Tour, featuring Microsoft Flight Simulator 3. So, semi-World Tour because we're not able to go around the whole world with this one. We can sort of kind of do that with Flight Simulator 4. We got a little bit more flexibility, not a whole lot. The main continent is still like North American continent, and then there's like Western Europe. But you can do this here too, but you can do custom content on Flight Simulator 4, which you can't do here. However, and other continents such as let's say Asia or Australia or whatever, I'm not sure how that's done. There are people that have created custom content for those areas and areas like in South America, so I'm not sure how they did it. The only thing I can think of is that they went into an area that doesn't have any scenery and either went in and actually created land that's similar to it or something. I mean, in our case, I can head into an area that doesn't have any scenery and then plop in airports as close as I can put them in there as far as range and to kind of simulate, no pun intended, with Flight Simulator, but to simulate that we're actually flying in those areas. So I would have to actually add in the scenery and references and stuff. And maybe that's what the other creators have done. I don't know. I haven't loaded them up yet. But it should be interesting. I mean, at least you can kind of do that with Flight Simulator 4. Not exactly the easiest, and I'm willing to bet that the majority of people probably aren't going to want to go through that trouble. But for the purposes of our series, we can definitely do that. But we're not here to talk about Flight Simulator 4. We are here to talk about Flight Simulator 3. And as you can see, it's an overcast sky. Let's go ahead, take a look at our flight plan, see what's going on. And in the famous words of Rhett and Link, let's talk about that. Good mythical morning. I like that show. Those two are fun. Okay, so I was going to say free advertisement, not like they need any free advertisement. I need free advertisement. We're here at Dubuque Municipal, and we got a fun flight ahead of us. We're going to be following the Mississippi River, VFR. It's a bit of a flight, but we'll be following the Mississippi River all the way up to La Crosse, Wisconsin. No Dine. Actually, I think that's no Dean. The thing about this is the furthest north we're going to be able to go. Yeah, there's some airports over here that are just a tad bit further north, but yeah, there you can't see it. But yeah, this is the furthest north you can go. If SubLogic had completed all the scenery discs, we would be able to continue going north, but they never did. Let me pull up a diagram of what the division of all the scenery discs. All right, so what we're looking at here is the United States divided into sections. Discs 1 through 6. Whoop, here's 6. These 6 were created. They were created first, obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that composes of what's called the Western United States, or the Western Scenery Pack, or whatever. This is not to be confused with USA East and USA West from SubLogic, which is that it right there? Okay. So do not confuse Scenery Disc 1 through 6 with this. Okay? This is for ATP, SubLogic ATP, and it can also be used on Flight Simulator 4. USA West and these scenery discs is not the same thing. It's not a compilation, just so you know. I didn't know that until I started looking into it. I got the scenery discs and I started checking them out. I'm like, oh, this is a little different and better too. Okay, so where are we? We are in scenery disc number 9. Now you can see where Lake Michigan is at and where the top of scenery disc 9 is at. 8 and 10 were never made. So 10 covers well, parts of Montana. It looks like scenery disc 4 covers half of Montana. 10 covers another part of Montana. It covers the Dakotas, Michigan. Yeah, parts of Michigan and Minnesota, which is a bummer. It's a bummer that we don't have 10. We also don't have 8, which has got Louisiana and Alabama and Georgia, and the state of Mississippi. Like I said, that one's a big bummer because in this, you're not going to be able to fly the Mississippi. Well, you sort of can. I think the scenery discs, if you have them loaded up, or like, let's say you have 9 loaded up, it'll load up the continental United States, and I think the Mississippi River is still there. There's just no airports or VORs or anything in this area because it wasn't created. So you could fly the Mississippi, but see, it still goes up into scenery disc 10. So yeah, it's depressing. And you may be wondering, well, wait a minute, didn't they do these in order? How come they didn't do 8 or 7, 8, 9? Well, they didn't. I can't remember. I think the first one they released on the east side was 7. And then I think they did 11, because I always remember 7-Eleven as in the convenience store. So I think they did 7, 11, and then 9, and then 12. That's what I think they did. Now, I'm coming from the days of the Commodore 64. So I remember 1 through 6 coming out. And I remember 7 coming out, and 11. And then they did 9, so it was kind of neat to see the whole Chicago area redone. But they never released 12. 12 never came out for the Commodore 64, but it did come out for the Commodore Amiga, and it is on the PC also. So that's why I think 12 was done last. But 8 and 10, they didn't do them. Why? I don't know. Ask SubLogic. Oh, wait, they don't exist anymore. Ask Bruce Artwick. I don't know. If Bruce Artwick is out there, or someone from SubLogic who can answer this question, that would be cool. I guess they just what I think is they didn't get to 8 and 10. I'm sure they were planning on it, but by that time people were moving from Flight Simulator 3 to Flight Simulator 4, which you can still use the scenery discs on, but SubLogic had that was around the time that SubLogic and Microsoft were kind of splitting. So SubLogic, they were able to get permission to use the code to do airline transfer pilot, which I have. I haven't played it yet. I will be. It'll be featured on this channel. It'll do a world, well, you know, semi-world tour on that also. To me, from what it looks like, Airline Transport Pilot looks like Flight Simulator 4, but with airlines. Which I know you can get airlines for Flight Simulator 4, but that's what it looks like to me. And they made SubLogic USA East and USA West, which does have, it does cover these areas. That's how I found out they weren't compilations. They do cover these areas. And so by that time, it was like, well, why go through the trouble of creating Scenery Disc 8 and 10 when they've already moved on, and they've already got something better. For completion's sake, I wish they had. I wish they had done it. And if nothing, if Flight Simulator 2 and Flight Simulator 3 were at least open to mods of some sort, then I'm sure fans would have completed this anyway. But unfortunately, no. So, and this will try to tell you that, you know, to think that they were done, but they weren't. Number 10 had Billings, St. Paul, Minneapolis, and Green Bay. And 8 had Memphis, Atlanta, and New Orleans. So that's what we're missing. Okay, so another thing that I've done is I looked at the last flight. What we did is we looked at the meter file. This time I went with the TAF file, and I inputted this into a converter, which is on a website called Flight Utilities. So you just copy that. You go over here to flightutilities.com/mr, as in Mr. online.aspx, and you get to this site, and you can come in here, paste it in here. Remember, it's going to paste in a large space here after the airport code. So make sure you only have one space there. Put that in there, paste it, and boom, it decodes all of that stuff for you, so it's a lot easier to read. It's got these listed by time and date. I went down here to this one, and I put in wind direction 260 degrees at 15 knots. There's nothing for gusts. I put in overcast sky, but I did not do 1,000 feet above aerodrome level. I don't know. I've seen this before where there's clouds 1,000 feet above the. That doesn't seem very far up, you know. Maybe it is that low. But in our case, we're doing a VFR flight, and no, I do not want it. I mean, I'm going to adjust a little bit, so I put it at 4,000 feet. And so I will go ahead and show you that here. We have environment, clouds, and you can see that I put in overcast here for bottom level, 4,400. I thought I put 4,000. Anyway, 5,000 for tops. I did have a second level on the last one, which didn't make any difference. You couldn't really see anything, so I just cleared it out. Thunderstorms. There is no thunderstorms. We may get to that. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that during these flights. We go here to winds. Sometimes those TAF reports will add in other layers of winds. I'd like to put these in, but I'm not sure where I can get the data at for these. I really haven't seen any data. Sometimes they show up in the TAF reports, and maybe that's all the only place to show up. I don't know. But I put in the winds here for surface. I put in 260. I put 259. Close enough. Speed 15. So there you go. So that's how I put some real weather in there. And will we do it all the time? No, but I thought you might like to see that in case you'd like to add a little bit of realism to your flights. Is this realistic? Well, no. But as far as retro goes, adding a bit of realism into that, there it is. So that's what I do. Okay. We don't need to set any VORs. I mean, I'm going to, just so that way we have an idea in regards to how far away La Crosse would be. Let's see here. La Crosse is 108.4. I'm going to do a couple. I'm going to do walk on because it's halfway there. I always set nav 1 to my destination airport. It's just easy for me to keep track of. Okay, so you can see it's too far away. We don't have anything. Walk on is 116.6. We'll go ahead and put that on there. We're not flying to them. We're just using them for reference. So that did something. If we click up here where it says nav 1, or if you click the B key right there, and we can see it's 64 miles to walk on. So like I said, we're gonna have a little bit of a flight on this one. We have no ATIS on this, so as far as runways, not really sure which. We're supposed to head in the direction of the wind, so that way the wind's not blowing you off a runway. Winds we said was 260, so let's find a runway that's opposite of that. Let's see, 260 minus 180 is 80. So 080. Let's bring up our map here. Okay, so that's not facing. That one there is north-south. So the runway just behind us, I think that's the one we're going to want to take there. Hey, it's not coming off there. There we go. All right. Go ahead and get the plane started. And we'll get moving. We said that runway was right behind us. Just move on over there. Most of these airports don't have taxiways. And on scenery discs 1 through 6, they definitely don't have taxiways. It's just runways. Like I said, those are the first 6 that were made, and then when they started doing the east, they started adding the taxiways, the VASI lights. They put fuel boxes in there. So they upped their game. They didn't up it enough because they didn't make those 2 scenery discs, which has always irritated me. And then for the Commodore Amiga, they never put out scenery discs 1 through 6, because the Amiga, when they did Flight Simulator 2 for the Amiga, they were already doing the eastern side. Also during that time, they were doing Hawaii and the Western Europe, Japan. So scenery disc 8 and 10 was not much of a priority, I guess. And converting scenery disc 1 through 6 for the Commodore Amiga just wasn't a priority. And I guess I understand from a business perspective. But it's still annoying. I hate having an incomplete collection. Oh, okay. I am not on the runway that I thought I wanted to be on. Okay. So it's coming up right here. There we go. Okay. That's what we want. We'll let this compass settle down here. Oh, wait. I just realized. I think that was the right runway. I have to remember. Make sure that you reset your gyro compass before you start moving. That was the right runway. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking like Elmer Fudd. Silly wabbit. Get off the one way. I think it's too far over there. All right, runway. Even though they didn't have taxiways, what I really appreciated was the fact that they were filled in. And if you remember from the default scenery, they were not filled in. They were just outlined. The outlined airports. Which actually carried over from Microsoft Flight Simulator 1. Microsoft Flight Simulator 1, if you were to look at the Chicago area, was just 5 airports, and that's it. And those 5 airports had taxiways and fuel boxes, and everything was just outlined in white. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2, well, obviously an upgrade from that, they added more airports, and those airports they were colored in, but they didn't have any taxiways or fuel boxes. But still, you had more places to fly. And it's just weird. It's not stuff that you think about until you start digging into these old simulators and you begin to realize, you see a pattern. You're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. All right, we're going to go ahead and take off. Okay, so that's not runway 6, it's runway 12, or runway 8, who knows, but this is what we're taking. It's good enough. Actually, that's kind of close, now that I think about it. So we should be heading directly into the wind. We're up in the air. Click on the landing gear, bring that up. Go ahead. Doing a coordinated turn there. It's the best that I can. Well, it was coordinated. So there is the Mississippi River right there in front of us. And that is Dubuque. And I think that's Route 20 going across there. So we can see the major roadway. And use your imagination as far as seeing a bridge. That's the thing about these old simulators. You're flying mainly by instruments. You do have some VFR reference, but you got to take that and use your imagination to kind of fill in the rest. Oh, and I figure I'll level us off in between 3,500 and 4,000, somewhere in there. We'll do a little turn here. Take a look behind us. There's the airport. There we can see the Mississippi River going south. We've got an angle here and we can see the Mississippi River curving over to the west and then back north. We'll go ahead and give ourselves a turn here. And we are still climbing up. Bring down the throttle. Beep beep. And have a little bit of patience for that vertical speed to adjust itself. Well, I think that'll work. Now you might be wondering what all those little dots are on the ground. You can see them a little bit there. That road there, that leads out to Waterloo, which is where we were at in the previous episode. We started off in Waterloo and then we flew over here to Dubuque. And that road, I'm sure that road goes somewhere. Let me see here. I'd say that road probably goes out to Janesville or Rockford, one of the two. But I have a feeling that you could probably take that road there and it will lead you back to Chicago. So yeah, I mean, you know, you can do a little bit of VFR flying and just, I'm just going to follow one of these roads and see where it takes me. Of course, it's still a good idea to use your instruments because once you get going and once you get flying, it might be hard. It's like, well, where am I? Well, there's a patch of gray or white sitting in this area, and there's a white line. What city am I in? So, and of course, yeah, you can use your VORs, but then if you don't know what scenery disk you're on, it could be a little bit of a challenge. So, still good to have your instruments set, have a plan. Usually you have a plan when you go fly. I'm going to go ahead and turn to the left. I've enjoyed this particular flight on all the simulators flying alongside the Mississippi. It's just kind of neat, and I had started off at the old simulators and then worked my way up to Flight Simulator 2002 and 2004 and FSX, and to be able to see the changes in the actual flight and see how the terrain, how the terrain started to grow and develop over time. Because you start off with this and you kind of use your imagination, and then as you start going up on the simulators, you start, beginning to see it more defined and more detailed, and it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of neat. At this time, I have not done the X-Plane version because I do something a little different with X-Plane. I treat that one as if we're actually going on a flight, and when we get there, we go into town and look at the type of stuff that's actually there. It's actually, if we got on a plane and flew, what would we do when we got there? So it's kind of like a travel series in a way. That's what I do with the X-Plane version. And that takes time to put together. And it was beginning to hold back the other simulators. And so I kind of stepped away from it and kept working on the other simulators until I got to a certain point. And then I put that on hiatus and then went back to some of these other simulators that I hadn't quite done much of. The Flight Simulator 2 and Flight Simulator 3 were still in the Chicago area. I had gotten a few episodes out on that just to see if anyone was interested in them. I didn't know, I already had the Commodore 64 done, so I didn't know if anyone would be interested in the Microsoft version. Plus, I had problems trying to get the scenery discs to work originally. I was trying to find a way because it all works off a floppy or floppy image, and so whenever I booted up Flight Simulator 2 and then tried to switch to a scenery disk, it froze. I couldn't get it to work in PC Emulator. I had trouble with DOSBox, but it wasn't until I used the front end of DOSBox, Defend, D-F-E-N-D, which has a much better function to it in regards to switching floppies. When I did that, boom, I was able to get it to work. And I was excited. Let me tell you how excited I was when I got that to work. I'm like, yes! Off we go. Well, it works for the most part. However, there are areas of the scenery disc that seem to be missing. It's almost as if you were to take a big area, a big square area. Here, let me, I'm going to pull up the SubLogic map again. I'm going to give you kind of an idea of what I'm talking about here, because this is what I wound up discovering, and it's kind of disheartening. Okay, So here we go. Whenever I click on it, it just highlights it. Okay, so Flight Simulator 2, I was able to go all the way up to La Crosse. But the other airports, because we'll now, since nothing's north and the other simulators went north, we'll be going to the east. And eventually those other simulators will be doing the same thing when they go through Canada and come back around. To my surprise, Lone Rock was not there, Dells was not there, Dane was not there, Whitman, all these airports were not there. When you get to the area, it's like you can tune into the VOR, but when you get to the area, it's gone. It just disappears. I don't think that's how the simulator was, or how the scenery disk is. So if I were to scroll this down, and I think it's almost like, whoops, like this, because Chicago O'Hare wasn't on there either. It disappeared. But you've got this big chunk that's missing, which I don't think is normal. I find it hard to believe that they would have just not programmed anything in there. And so I started looking up some information, and the images that you can find out there, they were originally copied from using teledisc, and then someone was able to convert that to a floppy image. But teledisc, these scenery discs, they had copy protection on them, and with the when they converted to the floppy image, parts of it was like some of the tracks wound up being missed, and I think that's the reason why there are sections of the scenery that are gone. It's not like the VORs are there and the airports are gone. It's just like you go into this other dimension and it's gone. There's like nothing except for ground and sky, and that's it. And I think, I'm pretty sure that's the reason why. So it's going to be kind of hard with the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2 to go to those airports until I can find a way. I think if I were to take the teledisc image and then write that to a 5 1/4 floppy and then hook that up to the emulator, then I think I might actually be able to get that scenery to work. I'm hoping. Trying to find the original discs. Yeah, good luck with that. And if you find them, do they still work? So I don't know if I'll be able to do flights in those areas or not. If some of you out there have got those discs, and I don't know if you tested them, if they work or not, if you want to donate that to the cause of the World Tour, I'll definitely make use of them and continue the series into those areas. But for now, we're just kind of stuck with what we have. Now, we won't have that limitation on Flight Simulator 3. Thankfully, I wish there was a way to retro kind of go backwards on it, but the scenery discs for Flight Simulator 2 were converted to SCN files, which Flight Simulator 3 and Flight Simulator 4 can read. And I checked those areas in Flight Simulator 3. They're there. So nothing's there. So that tells me right there that this scenery is supposed to show up on Flight Simulator 2. We're just kind of stuck. If there is a way we could take those scenery files and convert them back, I I wonder, I don't think it would work, but I wonder if I could take the SCN file and change the extension back to what's used for Flight Simulator 2, if it would even work. Probably not. But you never know. It could be just that simple of a fix. Oh man, if it's that easy, that'll be great. I'll be excited about that. I know for those of you who are excited about these old flights, because nobody else is doing them, I know you'll be excited about it also. I mean, I don't want to say, well, here we are, we're at La Crosse, and then the next episode, sorry guys, sorry guys, all the airports that we want to go to are not there, so we're going to continue from this particular airport. No, I want to be able to do the airport hopping. So I'll try that and see if it works. I'm not holding out any hope on that. It's just, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, it doesn't. Like I said, I do have the teledisc images of them, but I've looked and tried to research to see if the emulators can read teledisc images, and they don't. PC emulator doesn't. I don't know. It has something to do with the way that either the way that they're written or the way that the floppy operates, that it can't be emulated or something. I don't know. If that's not the case, if you know of the emulator or something that is able to use teledisc images, please let me know. Let me know what your settings are. Let me know which emulator you're using. If you know a site, a dependable site that can that's giving information on how to make that work, let me know in the comments, because I would really like to get those working. And if you help me out, I will give you a shout out on the channel. We're going to go ahead and alter our flight here to continue following the Mississippi. So these dots, I kind of like to pretend that maybe they're just like lights on the ground. I know that doesn't quite work out when you're not in a city area. So I guess you know what we could do. We'll just go to the sim here. And, okay, I changed it to small rectangles, but it doesn't show anything. If I change it to big rectangles, that's kind of like how it looks on Flight Simulator 4, and I'd hate to do the same thing. That's why I like to use the dots on that. Now I could turn the dots off, but then it winds up, you know, looking like Flight Simulator 2. Although the colors are better. We got a river heading off to the east. You can see that there. Just to kind of show you on the map. These are fun things that we can do during a flight, so that way it doesn't get too boring. So here is that fork. So it's coming up here, and it's turning off and heading off to Lone Rock. As we're flying north along the Mississippi, we're going to see this curve off to the right and then curve back to the left. And that river is the Wisconsin River. So another little thing that we can kind of show you, just so you can see, you know, what they did in regards to making it match with the map. So here's Dubuque. You can see how it curves. You can see the split there for the Wisconsin River. Here's La Crosse. And the scenery kind of goes up to about this point, and then it stops. Nothing more. Because Oshkosh is in there. Manitowoc is there. But Green Bay's not, because it's in a scenery disc area that was never made. Ah! It's annoying. Now, I'm not a Green Bay Packers fan or anything, but I know there are people that are out there, you know, they love Green Bay, and I would love to be able to do a flight from or to Green Bay on Flight Simulator 2 or 3, but we can't. It's not there. It's not available. You know, obviously SubLogic was able to make scenery discs for Flight Simulator, so if they can do it, why can't someone else do it? I mean, there's got to be a way, right? And there are people that make homebrew games all the time, or spend months or years working on mods. I mean, look at Skyrim. Look at the stuff that's come out for Skyrim. It's just absolutely incredible. And it's free. So there's a lot of talented modders out there. Is anyone out there willing to maybe mod the old Flight Simulator 2 and 3 and make those areas available? Put in the airports, and that'd be great if they could. And if you're looking for a reference as far as, okay, well, what airports should I put in there? What you could do is, if you can get the map for USA East, and you may not need, well, no, you probably will need some West, but you could look at the airports that they put in this one, and that'll give you a reference on, oh, okay, so they have it in this. I can go ahead and add the same things. Like Houghton County Memorial in Michigan. Land O'Lakes, Kings Land O'Lakes. And that's like right on the border of Wisconsin and Michigan. You've got Duluth. Sky Harbor is on here. John F. Kennedy Municipal, Gogebeck County. Those are all airports that will be going, or that we have gone to, in the later simulators. Let's see, what else did the SubLogic East cover in this area? Okay, there is La Crosse. So they've got, I can't read that, Winona Montgomery, Red Wing Municipal, and of course St. Paul, Eau Claire, now you may not be able to fit them all, you know, as far as the scenery disc is concerned, but at least that would give you some kind of idea. And if you're not able to get your hands on one of these maps, you could always use not Flight Simulator 5. You could always use Flight Simulator 98 as a reference, saying, okay, Flight Simulator 98's got these airports. Let's add in those airports for Flight Simulator 2 and 3. I'm going to switch our DME now to La Crosse, which is 52 miles. We got 52 miles to fly. I remember what I told you about the river, how I was going to curve to the right and then back to the... Ooh, gotta chill. And then back to the left. You can see that happening up there. Now, one thing you might be thinking is, what in the world happened to this river? Why do we have a blue line now when before we had, it was a little thicker? Well, I've noticed that when flying this in the later simulators, that the river started to thin out around this point, and then it would get wider, and then it would thin out again. If we go ahead and go back to the Google Maps here. Let's go ahead and bring back, let's see, that's a little too high. Here we go. You can see right in the area, do you see how it's beginning to thin out right here? I mean, it's not as thick as it was. Well, I mean, this is kind of the same, but you can see how it's kind of like, if you were to ignore this part here, you've got a thin little river, and then it starts to get bigger, and then it thins out a little bit, then it gets bigger again, until it gets to La Crosse, then it gets really big, and, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what they were trying to accomplish. So props to them for trying to do what they can with the simulator and the graphics at the time. Like I said, you got to use some imagination. Yeah, I think that's the fun part of the old simulators, The challenge is flying from one airport to another, using your imagination on the way there, based on what graphics are available. Okay, well, let's talk about some other stuff. Blub, 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 blub. In our Flight Simulator 3 manual, which we've been going through on most of the flights, we will continue with what we've got here. We're in the section called View Controls in Chapter 2. And Joey, if you can go ahead and read the first paragraph. Flight Simulator, how you doing? Flight Simulator has a sophisticated viewing system that gives you views from the aircraft, as well as views of your aircraft as you fly. You control your views and your windows with the keyboard and the Views menu. The following table shows the commands on the Views window. Well, I can show that to you right now. Here are the things. You got window, identify and change active window. You got your you cycle between these, first 3D, second 3D, and map. From, specify the viewing mode. Cockpit tower, tracking, or spot. 3 is your zoom. Zoom in, zoom out. 4, control viewing direction and cockpit mode. 5, axis indicator on off, or select the shape of the axis indicator on the screen. We looked at that in the last episode. First 3D, turn on or off the first 3D window. Second 3D, turn it on or off. Map, turn it on and off. Full screen tower view. Turn on off full screen view when tower is selected. I wish they had a full, well, no, it is full view. Titles on Windows. Turn on off titles at the top of the 3D windows. Shader. Make sure this is selected, otherwise your scenery's not going to have, it's not going to be filled in. Turn on off shading. Off means aircraft and scenery drawn with lines only. That sucks. You don't want that. C, set up windows. Move size, turn on or off windows. And D, set your spot plane. This is where it follows you when you do aerobatics and stuff. I like the spot plane just to kind of get some visual, just to kind of see it from an external perspective of the plane. And then they've got the keyboard commands for that. So the view directions handled by the scroll lock key and then the numbers on your numerical keypad. But that only works for cockpit, because pressing the scroll lock puts you into cockpit view mode. So in order to change your spot plane, you have to go into the menus and select it. But in Flight Simulator 4, I believe the shift key and the numerical keypad would allow you to change your spot plane view. Selecting the active window. You can have two 3D windows on the screen, each viewing a different angle and with a different zoom factor. You can also have a map window on the screen, which allows you to look at a map of the area over which you are flying or taxiing. Now, we've seen that using the map when taxiing is helpful. Only one window is active or selected at any time. The name of the active window appears after the window option on the Views menu. When you want to change a window's view angle, zoom, or view direction, that window must be the active window. The selected window is outlined in white, while the other windows are outlined in black. Select window on the Views menu to cycle through the windows. We talked about that. You can also select a window using the keys. And these are the bracket keys. The left bracket is 3D window 1 and the right bracket is 3D window 2. The Num lock is the map window. Selecting the view mode. Selecting from on the view menu or pressing the S key, which, as we know, the S key has continued on the other simulators. It cycles through cockpit, tower, track, and spot view modes. And these are the characteristics, and I'm sure you know about. Well, the cockpit is what we're looking at outside the windshield. Tower, you're looking out from a stationary control tower. This mode automatically tracks your movements, and you can change the location of that tower by going to Navcom and position set, and you can set it right here. You can set your control tower right there. Track. You are looking from the ground base, which is not more than 5 miles from you. In multiplayer mode, you are visually tracking the other player. Spot. Arf, arf. You are looking at your airplane or as viewed from a spotter aircraft flying next to you or behind, below, or in front of you. Use the Set Spot Plane menu to specify where the spotted aircraft will fly. The title bar above the three-dimensional window tells the view mode. Pressing scroll lock to choose view direction always puts the active window into cockpit mode. When flying with only one window, you can alternate between cockpit and tower modes using the S key and scroll lock. Zoom control. In all view modes, you have a zoom control. The two 3D windows and the map window can be zoomed. Zoom. The zoom control keys affect only the selected window. The zoom option on the views menu and the zoom indicator on the control panel tell the zoom factor of the selected window. in the zoom right over here on the right. The zoom option on the views menu and the zoom indicator on the control panel. I just said that. You can zoom in or out, change your field of view by pressing the Windows selection key. And you know what keys those are, we just mentioned it. Followed by the plus or minus key on the keyboard, not the numeric keypad. Don't press it there, it's on the regular keyboard. If you choose zoom from the views menu, you can select the active window for zooming, and the plus, minus, and backspace keys can then zoom the active window. When landing, taking off, or doing aerobatics, make sure the zoom control is on 1x, which is 1 times magnification or normal field of vision. Press the Windows selection key followed by the backspace key. View distortion and wide angle and telephoto views can affect your sense of direction and movement. Note, remember that once you have selected a window, you can zoom in or out, press plus or minus many times without selecting the window again. And the last section, selecting view direction. In cockpit mode, you can view in 9 directions. Use the views menu or the keypad to select the view direction. On the views menu, select direct to cycle through 9 view directions. The selected direction appears after direct on the menu. To use the keyboard, press scroll lock followed by the view direction key on the numeric keypad to select view direction on the active window. Just like the later simulators, except you don't use... Ooh, it's flashing because we are going into the clouds. Whoops, we went into the clouds. Alright, time to go back down. On newer keyboard designs, the scroll lock key is far from the keypad and is awkwardly placed for view direction selection. On these keyboards, pressing the asterisk or slash next to the keypad serves the same function as scroll lock. Oh, okay, that I did not know. That's interesting. Okay, so that flashing that you saw, I saw that back when I was doing the Commodore 64 videos, thinking, okay, what is going on with the graphics? Why is it doing that? That is the strobe light. That's the strobe light flashing and bouncing off of the clouds. That's why it's doing that. If you turn the strobe light off, it won't do that. So yeah, you can always turn that off if you want. Crosse. I think Crosse has got ATIS. Let's see, that's not what I want there. I think it's got, nope, it does not have, oh! Okay. On this, it does not have ILS or ATIS. That's a bummer. I always like to tune into ATIS, you know? Have that sense of communication and find out what runway they want you to land on. Oh, in the options, for like transponder, let's see if I can pull it up here. Transponder. See, I think this is interesting. Transponder to be implemented in future version. So, oh, what? You can turn the transponder on or off. Well, what happens if we turn it on, I wonder? Probably nothing. But it says like to be, you know, future date. Well, that future version was Flight Simulator 4. So, why did they have it in Flight Simulator 3? Was that a tease? Hey, look what we got, but you don't get it. Be sure to buy Flight Simulator 4 coming out in 6 months. Yeah, Flight Simulator 3 was not out very long until they came out with Flight Simulator 4. I don't know the time span. I think it was somewhere between 6 and 12 months, between 6 months and a year. I'm sure that irritated some people. It's like, I just bought this version. And of course, Flight Simulator 4, had all the different add-ons, sound and graphics upgrades. So, people were just thinking, oh, man, I don't want to be stuck with this garbage. So they go and upgrade the 4. And I wonder, see, I didn't fly 4 back in that time. I was on the Commodore Amiga. I did not move over to the PC until version 5.1 on CD-ROM. And I actually got Flight Simulator first before I got a PC, because there was a PC emulator for the Amiga. It was a software-only emulator, which is not always... One of my cats is trying to get inside. Software emulation sometimes does not work out the greatest, and a Motorola 68000 processor trying to emulate a Intel processor, it doesn't quite work very well. The PC emulator, I think I was able to get Windows 3.1 to work. And I did manage to get Flight Simulator working on that emulator. It was cool to see, but trying to fly with it, it was like one frame and then refresh. Next frame, refresh. Yeah, it was a slideshow. And it was frustrating. And I really, really, really wanted to play Flight Simulator 5.1. I was like, oh, these graphics look so great. We would have, back, when did that come out? There was 95, Windows for 95, so I would say, it was around 94? Can you imagine if we saw the graphics for Flight Simulator 2020 back in 95, 94, 95? We'd have a heart attack. We wouldn't believe it. Oh, that can't be. That can't be for the computer. No way. How do I get a copy of that? What's it going to cost me? But yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, I've got to get... I want to play it. The Amiga was beginning to lose its popularity by that time. The PC was surpassing the Amiga. And so I bought my first PC, and it was the last PC I would ever buy, not including laptops. It was a Packard Bell, which I like to call Packard Smell, 90. It was a Pentium 90 computer, and I was able to play Flight Simulator. Yay! And later on, that's when I would start building my own computers. I went to AMD processors, and I started building my first computer I used with Flight Simulator 98, and I just flew that. First of all, I flew the 5.1 all over the world on that one. That was just exciting. And then Flight Simulator 98, wow. More airports. And then you had the add-ons. You had the ProFlight 98, which, added ATC. Yeah, I flew that for a while. I really enjoyed that. And then Flight Simulator 2000 came out, and, well, people were having trouble trying to get that to run. Well, it ran okay for me. I just couldn't get into it. Well, there was a couple of things. I had some life changes going on during that time, but also I had Flight Simulator 98 not all souped up, but it was just enjoyable, and so I stuck with that for the most part. And then I got out of Flight Simulator for a while, and so I missed 2002. But when FS9 came out, oh, I was totally back. I was back on the train with that one. Oh, that was great. I still love FS9. And then FSX, well, we know how that went when it first came out. Some computers wouldn't couldn't run it very well. It wasn't optimized very well. And so I'd gotten it and I fooled around with it, but I used FS9 for the most part until I had a better computer, and then I started doing, using FSX a lot. And then P3D prepared, which I got not too long ago, is FSX done a lot better. Especially the 64-bit version. But unfortunately, not everything from FSX works on prepared version 4. And I had kept my eyes on X-Plane. It was X-Plane 11 that kind of convinced me that I wanted to give it a shot. And I actually have a couple of videos of the X-Plane demo. I was trying it out for the first time, trying to see if I liked it or not. And the first episode, I'm like, is it this ugly? I didn't have the graphics turned all the way up, so all I saw was like roads, and the roads were just kind of like this and cross. It looked absolutely ugly. I'm like, this can't be right. Based on all the videos that I've seen people do of X-Plane, I'm like, why does mine look so ugly? And then I upped the graphics on it, and it started looking better. And I wasn't sure if my computer could handle it, but it could. Well, I wasn't sure about the graphics card, but yeah, it worked just fine. And so now with all those simulators, and now with this World Tour series that I'm doing, I'm playing simulators that I hadn't played before. And I try to do something unique with each one to make it a unique experience. And it's been fun. It's been a blast. This channel's got more flight simulator videos on it than anything else that I've done. And that's because Flight Simulator is just one of the things that I've always liked. And that's my story. And feel free to share your story. I'm interested in hearing that. How far back do you date in regards to Flight Simulator? Which one was your first? Which one's your favorite? Have you gone back and played some of these old versions? Have these videos inspired you to go back and try those versions? I think our airport's going to be up ahead. When I was flying this on Flight Simulator 2, I thought it would be here, and it's not. The river will wind around this way, and then it comes back around and opens up. Actually, right here where the line is at, that is Crosse. So we're getting there. We're going to go ahead and move over this way. You can look out the back. That's where we've been. Hey, so for those of you who are actually sticking with me on these flights and are actually watching these all the way through, man, I appreciate you. I really do. I'm glad you're hanging out with me and enjoying these. There it is. There's the Crosse right there. I mean, it's cool, you know, we can have some fun together with these old simulators. You know, and I certainly don't expect people to sit here in front of the screen and watch it the whole way through. You know, I figure, you know, they might be working on something and they have it on in the background, you know, and they're kind of looking at it every so often or whatnot. Now for me, I don't get that luxury. I've got to sit here and just kind of keep an eye on what's going on. Otherwise, if I'm off doing something else while this is going, that's not so cool, you know. Okay, so our airport, so yeah. Do you see how it's curving off this way and then it opens up? So the airport's going to be right here. Right there. I may not be running off to do something else, but I am going to grab some water. It's kind of weird how the river is at an angle like that. Let's take a look at the map view here for a moment. So we can zoom out there. Now if we keep zooming out, so remember I told you there was no coverage in this area, but it does have it mapped out, so you could follow the Mississippi River. There just won't be anything down in that area. And well, now I can't get this thing to... Okay, well, we'll just go to... whoops. Navcom and turn off the map display. There we go. And our airport's in front of us. Now, the VOR is off to the left. So we're going to have to use our visual senses here to line up the runway. We're pretty much lined up. We're going to land on 36. That's pretty much what I did on the other simulators. We're going to go ahead and drop our landing gear. Click on that. Click the flaps. And we'll make our way down. I am going to use some elevator trim. Bring up the throttle some. I don't want to go down that quickly. There we go. Maybe a little too much there. Now my little trick is I try to get the airport centered on the screen. Like right around here or something. And in case you're wondering, well, yeah, we zoomed out of the map so you know where we're at. But as far as this little bay area there, I'm going to pull up a satellite view here. Now, they don't have it exactly accurate, but here it is. So here's La Crosse, here's the airport. There is a river that comes along the side. They don't have it drawn out, but they do have this area here, Lake Onalaka. So they have that there. Now later on, they do have a river going around there. I don't think that shows up until Flight Simulator 2002. And see, and that's why I like doing these flights on all the different simulators, so that way you can see the comparison of the actual flights themselves. There's channels out there that have history of Flight Simulator. Let me show you a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You don't know where it's at. There is one where the guy did, he took off from Meigs Airport on each of these simulators. So there was a comparison there. But hey, you may want to see something else besides Chicago. You know, you might want to see Duluth or New York or Phoenix, Arizona, or Salt Lake City. You know, you might want to see some comparisons there, or just maybe little areas like this along the Mississippi. And that's what this series does. Another thing of flaps down. So you get to see some fun comparisons with that. And then I'm here with you, so that way I can kind of show you some things with the simulator and what I do. Okay. To adjust our descent a little bit more. Going in at 80 knots is a little bit more faster than what I want. Let's go ahead and bring the flaps down another notch. Need to do a little bit more lining up with the runway there. Okay, I'm going to start using the rudder now to make some fine adjustments. I think we got a good rate of descent going here. This looks pretty good. We were centered, now it's going on. I wonder if it's because the wind's blowing us. Okay. Coming in. Let's try to get on the runway here. Yeah, the wind's blowing us off to the side, that's why. Woo! There we go. We are landed. Let's go ahead and slow down here. Bring our flaps up. And we don't have any taxiways or parking areas, so I will just go ahead and decline that call and park over here in the grass. About here, I think should do it. Now this is supposed to have fuel, but I believe it does. So yeah, see where we are. See, we're at La Crosse, and no, I don't see any little boxes or anything. So no. Oh, it doesn't want to do it now. Okay, we'll go here and turn it off. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and turn off the airplane. Yeah, I know, you probably supposed to put it to lean. I always think of it, it's just, it was habit for me. It's kind of like, oh, you know, turn off the car. But hey, we are here at La Crosse, Wisconsin. If you've been following this Flight Simulator 3 flight all the way from Chicago Megs, hey man, good for you. I find these old flights challenging and interesting. It brings back memories. I may have not played this back in the day, but I did play the Commodore 64, and the graphics, well, I mean, it's the same scenery, does pretty much. And it's just kind of fun to relive those memories. Or in the case of, you know, Flight Simulator 3 and 4 is making new memories. So that's kind of fun. And I hope you're enjoying it. And if you are, thumbs up, leave me a like. I'd appreciate that. Helps out me and the video and the channel, and it helps with that whole YouTube algorithm thing, so that way other people like yourself who are enjoying these videos will be able to find them. It'll show up on their feed. And then subscribing and helping us grow the community is a wonderful thing. And then lastly, that notification bell doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for anyone else, but for you, it lets you know when the next video is uploaded to this channel. And that's a good thing, because that's something I'm sure you want to know in regards to any other Flight Simulator videos I put up, or, you know, future ones of Flight Simulator 3. So with that, thanks very much for watching, and I will see you on the next leg of our journey.